Hi guys, and welcome to my presentation on prejudice in today's society and the LGBT community. So what is LGBT? It is a community of those who do not define or may not define themselves as heterosexual. The umbrella this covers is wide and varies, covering many different sexual orientations, including, but not limited to, homosexuality, bisexuality, and pansexuality. There are many other labels that individuals have used to define themselves, and these labels that we put on those individuals can cause discrimination and prejudice. For the purposes of this presentation, we'll be discussing mostly homosexuality and bisexuality. So what do we define as sexual orientation? Webster defines sexual orientation as a person's sexual preference or identity as bisexual, heterosexual, or homosexual. In other words, it is a sexual attraction you feel to either men, women, or both. But as seen here, there are many other labels that society has used for a wide variety of preferences. There are a lot of terms today and different ways to be politically correct. For the sake of this presentation, and for the sake of most of the population, homosexuality is not the same as being transgender. To be transgender is to have a gender identity which doesn't correlate with your biological sex. Sex and gender can be interchanged at times, but not always. Many consider gender to mean something you choose, or the gender identity which you have for yourself. Sex, on the other hand, is a biological aspect which you cannot choose, though you can change. Transgender, being the T in LGBT, does not deem your sexual orientation as homosexual and is not the same thing as cross-dressing or genderqueer. So why is it important to know all of this? Well, society today likes to be politically correct, but it also likes to discriminate. Discrimination can lead to many different problems, from job inequality to depression. If we do not know or understand why we are discriminating or what we are prejudiced against, then we cannot hope to find an answer or some sort of peace. To understand, society has created labels which help to define what it is we did not understand in the first place, but these labels don't really help at all. By labeling somebody as homosexual or otherwise, it can determine how well they do in school, in job hunting, and even in some cases, the acceptance within their own family. Now, how is it that our labels create prejudice? Well, we've all read about the representativeness heuristics in this class, which is the mental shortcut that leads us to base our decisions on how similar something is to the typical case. Typically, they say that homosexual males are supposed to be more social, friendly, and more feminine in other ways, while homosexual females are supposed to be more masculine, with short hair and likes to play with cars and so forth. This causes one to jump conclusions and to say that just because a male or female doesn't act the way that matches their sex, that they must be homosexual or otherwise. This is a stereotype that we put on others to help us define who they are for them. Now, this causes us to make judgments. Making judgments as we do in society leads to some very common problems. Many of times, those who are perceived as homosexual will be discriminated against during job interviews, as well in the workplace. It is assumed that because they are homosexual that they are made only to do certain jobs. We are more likely to give certain jobs to those who are perceived to have a certain sexual orientation. A study conducted in 2016 had subjects, both male and female, apply for a job. Those reading the resumes of these participants rated those whose sexual orientation didn't match the job's gender stereotype as misfits. These misfits didn't get the job based on their sexual preferences, something that shouldn't be an issue. Today, it is illegal to discriminate in the workforce when it is based on sex, race, pregnancy, and other things, but not sexual orientations. Now, it's also important to understand discrimination within the family. Family life and prejudice within the LGBT community is also important. Many times, especially in families that identify as Christian, children are ostracized and even abused by family members when they come out as homosexual or bisexual. Christianity previously had a firm belief that God hates gays, which has been discredited in many cases, as seen by the acceptance from the Pope, but still holds firm in some households. It has been reported that women who identified as homosexual or bisexual received lower levels of support from their families. It is also seen that these people, especially adolescents, may hide their identity, which can lead to further harm than good. Many times, children do this to please their parents in an attempt to keep the peace. They are told to avoid such things, like acting differently from others, and they are then apprehensive about becoming the stereotype. A lack of support from the family can lead to depression. A study was conducted in 2017 where out of 495 participants, only 11% found themselves comfortable around their families after coming out. The participants in the studies were from families that identified as Seventh-day Adventists, which is a denomination of Christianity. When individuals came out to their parents, over half the participants said their parents were disappointed, and nearly 49% said their parents forbade them from mentioning this to anyone else. These participants felt the full impact of discrimination as their families, friends, and congregations turned away from them. They were then asked questions based off the 7 symptoms that the DSM-5 associates with depression. Many of them showed signs of depression and even suicidal thoughts over the previous 2 weeks. When asked more questions about the previous 6 months, at least 30% stated that they had suicidal thoughts or thoughts of ending their lives. This is the sad truth and very important to understand. The hate created by labels can cause many to wish their lives over, and it is something that needs to be changed. So a question on everybody's mind is whether or not this is getting any better. Is there a light at the end of this tunnel? Well, we've begun to understand that human rights means all humans, not just those who are heterosexual, white, or male. The number of General Social Survey respondents who deemed homosexuality as something always wrong dropped from 54.8% in 2008 to 40.1% in 2014. The negative attitudes toward homosexuality has continued to decrease in the United States over the last 9 years. It is still unsure as to why these changes have occurred, but seeing them do such is a sign that we can all take as good. In 2015, the U.S. government legalized same-sex marriage in all 50 states, and even as North Carolina tries unsuccessfully to ban same-sex marriage, the country isn't hearing it. Our world is in fact changing, and we have begun to accept this, and it is beautiful. We are learning now more about the prejudices that we feel towards others, and by understanding them and in understanding how we discriminate, we can then change our attitudes and our behaviors. So I thank you guys for listening in, and I hope you all have a great day.